this thing go up a wee bit? There we go. Going live again because I have so much coursework to do and I love the distractions. So in some of my previous videos you might have seen that I am a learned scholar. I mean, look at this labyrinth, like this Colosseum, I don't know, just this collection of books. Look at these books, look at this library, look at all this knowledge and wisdom I have acquired. Yes, so that makes me uniquely qualified to address the subject of this video. So I recently came across an article, and I'll put the link in the description, that presents us 5 reasons to suspect Jesus never existed. You know, and you might have seen for the thumbnail that I have this book. I have this book by N.T. Wright that I have never read. No, I have actually read a couple of chapters, but honestly, look how thick that book is. You don't need to read that. You just buy it, you sit it on your shelf here, make sure people can see it in the background, and there you go. That's how you win arguments, folks. You may also have noticed the little lights over here. Solar powered, by the way. What I wanted to do, my plan was to buy some glass bottles and then put little lights inside them to make it look like fireflies, right? I just thought, that would be great for my bedroom. But I ended up buying this not knowing it was solar powered, and then my Italian sweetheart decided to wrap them around the frame of my bed here so that for 30 seconds every night when the lights go off, the frame of my bed illuminates rather sweetly. That's right, folks. The term Italian sweetheart is Scots for gay. No, that's not what this video is about. She's real. She's a real person. Okay, I wouldn't do that. That's not me. And also, there's a little pink gem there. It just reminds me of her because she did all these things to my room. Anyways, let's get to the point at hand. 5 reasons. Well, I'll give you one big reason to believe. Basically, every historian agrees that there was a Jesus of Nazareth. Okay, that's the mainstream scholarship. So this article right here has been written by a skeptic. However, let's just see, they've got some interesting ideas. So let's go through the reasons. First of all, what's the 5 reasons? Let's get into that. No first century secular evidence whatsoever exists to support the actuality of Yeshua ben Yosef. That's the first reason. The second reason is the earliest New Testament writers seem ignorant of the details of Jesus' life, which became more crystallized in later texts. Okay. The third reason is even the New Testament stories don't claim to be first-hand accounts. Oh my. The fourth reason is the Gospels, our only accounts of the historical Jesus, contradict each other. Number 5 is, did I get them in order? Yeah, number 5 is modern scholars who claim to have uncovered the real historical Jesus depict wildly different persons. Now, what can I say so far? I actually hadn't read them before making this live, so actually I'm in the midst of a crisis of faith now because those are some compelling reasons. Let's get into it. So the first reason, no first century secular evidence whatsoever supports the actuality of Yeshua ben Yosef. Yeah, I mean, first century secular evidence. So what they do is they quote Bart Ehrman. You might be familiar with Bart Ehrman. He's a scholar of ancient antiquity. He's wrote a few books about Jesus. The thing about Bart Ehrman is he actually believes in the actuality of the person of Jesus of Nazareth, or Yeshua ben Yosef. So that's a strange person to quote. However, the quote goes on to say how there's no record of birth, there's no trial transcripts, there's no death certificates, and there's no expressions of interest, no heated slanders, no passing references, and nothing. And there's nothing like that. There's no historical evidence like that. And And so what is my response to that? So what? You can't find his birth certificate? Oh man, really? You can't find his birth certificate? I mean, is that supposed to make us like, oh, you can't? The man who was born 2,000 years ago in ancient Israel, the place that was ransacked for hundreds of years in many, many conflicts, that one of them, in fact, a couple of them actually involved Romans burning all the records of the Jews and everything. You can't find his birth certificate. Interesting. Yeah, so I'm not too like blown away by that. It's like, well, so what? And again, the guy you've sourced here actually believes in the person of Jesus. The second reason, the earliest New Testament writers seem ignorant of the details of Jesus' life, which became more crystallized in later texts. Well, my response to that is, do they? Do they seem ignorant? Well, I'm sorry, they seem ignorant, but seeming ignorant and being ignorant are two entirely different things. I mean, the text of the New Testament, but the point here is what Paul doesn't mention that Jesus was born of a virgin. Well, maybe he doesn't explicitly comment on that, but Paul does make explicit reference to some amazing spiritual truths regarding Jesus' life. Romans 5 comes to mind, but the text of Romans 5 doesn't. But remember, it's particularly good. No, seriously, this is like a rather arbitrary criticism, I would say. I like that word, arbitrary criticism. That's what I call all criticisms of Christianity now, arbitrary criticisms. But it doesn't hold water. That's another good cliche to use. Right. So basically, this is all talking about Paul. Historians have long puzzled over the silence of Paul on the most basic biographical facts of Jesus. Really? I don't know. And the teachings of Jesus. That's not true. I mean, that's not true. The teachings of Jesus are clearly taught by the Apostle Paul. And if you don't see that, you're ignorant. And the fact that Jesus doesn't mention that he was born of a virgin, I think it's inferred. I think it's strongly implied, that he was born of man and also born of the Spirit. I don't see the conflict. Quite frankly, I don't see the conflict. The third point. Even the New Testament stories don't claim to be first-hand accounts. Don't claim to be first-hand accounts. That's not true. Just going back to Paul the Apostle, he claims to have had a first-hand account. Certainly there are, the Gospels, the Gospels are like eyewitness accounts, and they all serve different purposes. I think the account of John, the Gospel of John, comes across as a first-hand account. So yeah, the third claim's not true. 4, the Gospels, our only account of the historical Jesus, contradict each other. There's a YouTube channel called Inspiring Philosophy, and he handles a lot of these contradictions. Again, a lot of these contradictions, and this is where the mainstream historians that this person hasn't consulted. This is where you should actually consult them. The contradictions are, again, here we go, arbitrary. They're like little tidbits and little incongruities that really don't impact the story in any significant way. So again, this is just weak sauce. And then we come to our fifth reason. Modern scholars who claim to have uncovered the real historical Jesus depict wildly different persons. And then he quotes John Dominic Crossan of the Jesus Seminar grumbles that the stunning diversity is an academic embarrassment, because apparently Jesus is described as a messianic king, or a progressive Pharisee, or a Galilean shaman, or a magus, or a Hellenistic sage, but he cannot very well have been all of them at the same time. Well, couldn't he have? I mean, all of those things doesn't, like a sort of, there's a crossing over to a certain degree. You could say you could be described as a Galilean shaman by one person. And let's just go back to like historical examples. I mean, if you look at the Crusades, you'll find historians who argue that they're defensive, and then other historians who argue that they were barbaric attacks. If you go back to individuals like Nero, some people describe him as a crazed lunatic with bloodlust, and other people say actually it was rather mild mannered. You know, stories of his insanity and bloodlust are greatly exaggerated. Again, we have two events there that definitely, well, an event in person with different historical interpretations, but that doesn't mean to say that the subject of interpretation didn't exist. So none of these reasons will do. They're all rather pathetic. So that's my critique on why these 5 reasons are BS. Again, I'll put the link below and you can look at it yourself. Again, this is just a rather welcome distraction from work, but hopefully it gives you something. Right, all the best. Take care. And okay.